4 times a year, we teach a class for new foster parents called Caregiver Core Training, or CCT for short. The next instance of CCT is coming up in August and September. It will be hosted by Cornwall Church, and the first day of class is on August 20th. You can learn more about it and register if you'd like to at skookumkids.org/CCT. And one of the things we talk about during that class is what happens in a child's brain when they are having a tantrum. See, human brains are in 2 basic parts. There's the lower part, we like to call that the lizard brain, and then the upper part, which we like to call the wizard brain. And the lower part is where all the survival instincts and involuntary functions are controlled, things like breathing and heart rate and hormones, basically all the things you don't have to think about, that's controlled in the lower part of your brain, or the lizard part of your brain. Basically, what your lizard brain is all the things in your brain that are also in a lizard's brain. And this lower part of the human brain develops first. The upper part of a human brain controls all of the things that you do have to think about. Things like language and risk assessment and logic. Those things are all controlled in the upper part of the human brain, which develops later. We like to call that the wizard brain. And the wizard brain develops much later than in the lower part. In women, it typically finishes developing sometime in the early to mid-20s, and in men, it doesn't fully develop until late 20s or sometimes early 30s. And this is why teenagers are such bizarre creatures, because they many times have full-grown adult-shaped bodies, but underdeveloped risk assessment, logic, and language centers. But anyway, when a human person feels under threat, their survival instincts put their brain and their body into a high alert condition that we call being flooded, because it's triggered from the lizard brain, the lower part of your brain, by releasing certain hormones into the bloodstream, specifically cortisol and adrenaline. And what these 2 chemicals do when they enter your bloodstream is they raise your heart rate, they speed up your breathing, they dilate your pupils, they push all your blood into your big muscles, so you have a heightened sense of focus and preparedness. And arguably most importantly, the thing that they do is unhook the 2 major sections of your brain. Your wizard brain enters a kind of standby mode. It gets turned off when you enter this condition, this flooded state. Have you ever noticed that when you get really upset, you can't think quite as clearly or in the same structured way that you do when you're calm? If you notice that when you're upset or you're angry, you're not as articulate. You can't find the words to say the things you mean. You're just spitting mad. Have you heard that expression? You can't say it. You just bah. That is adrenaline and cortisol turning off the upper part of your brain, which controls logic, risk assessment, and language. Your wizard brain is very complex. It does a bunch of very intricate things, and when you're in fight or flight mode, you don't need intricacies, you need decisiveness. You need simple things done very quickly and decisively, and so the more complicated part of your brain goes into standby and your instincts take over. But the big difference between you and me and a child is that our wizard brain is fully developed. It's completely finished. And the more developed that a wizard brain is, the harder it is to turn it off. So when children, human persons, whose the thinking part of their brain, their language center and their logic center and the part of their brain that assesses risk, when that is about half-baked and they regularly experience trauma, their survival instinct, the this condition of switching off part of your brain and your body getting flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, going into this flooded condition, fight or flight mode, where you're hyper aware and your brain's shutting down all of the most complex activities. It's moving to that condition gets put on a hair trigger. So when kids are regularly in a position where they are getting flooded, it becomes easier and easier and easier for them to get flooded. And when they are that way, when they're in that state of mind, they cannot access the part of their brains that controls most of the things that a good parent is going to want them to do, like thinking through their options and considering the risk and reward of certain actions and choosing their words carefully and being fully in control of their hands and feet and managing their own emotions. These things are controlled by the wizard brain, which gets turned off when a child gets flooded. So, what do we do? Well, when a child gets this way, the most important thing to do is keep them safe, to continue talking to them, to maintain full control of your own words and actions, to demonstrate to them that it is possible to be calm in the face of chaos. You are being the adult and making the space around you safe to be in. You don't try to teach anything to a flooded child. That's about as effective as trying to lecture a lizard. It's just not going to work right then. Instead, you wait, keep the child safe, demonstrate to them with your words and actions that it is possible to maintain or regain control. You help them to re-engage the thinking parts of their brain, and then once that is done and the child's breathing begins to slow down and their heart rate stops racing and their hands are calm and their words are quiet, once that's done, then you can teach. So we talk a lot about specifics of how to help a child through a tantrum in CCT, and all of our instructors have lots of experience doing this. So there are plenty of real world examples to draw on as well. And if you'd like to be a foster parent, CCT, this class where we talk about this subject and a bunch of other really important stuff, is one of the requirements. So we hope you'll join us for our instance, our class that starts on August 20th. You can register at skookumkids.org/CCT. One thing that's different about our CCT classes is they include free childcare and dinner on the first night and last night of the class. Childcare on all the nights, free dinner first night and last night. So check it out, skookumkids.org/CCT. Hope you'll join us.